some of the things that we've been covering in the lesson that Bishop has been teaching over the last 3 Sundays about the blessing of the Lord. And so tonight I give you the subject I have is, we've been on Proverbs 10:22, which says that the blessing of the Lord maketh rich, and he addeth no sorrow to it. And I've been meditating on that since he's been preaching on it. And my message tonight is rich for a reason. Rich for a reason. Because he's covered both the spiritual and the material blessings. But once those things are my possession or our possession, we need to know why we have them. And it's not to promote the agenda that we have. It's really to keep God's agenda number one and to put it on display for everybody to know who Christ is. So that's going to be my focus tonight. First, let's go to Galatians 2:20. Galatians 2:20. The first thing I thought about was how to receive the blessing of God, and what condition my heart and mind needs to be in to receive the blessing of God. Because if I receive the blessing of God with the wrong mind or the wrong intentions, then I'll do what it says not to do in James 4:2, which is consuming upon my own lust, and not just trust God and seek God for things so that I can do what I want to do, which could ultimately lead to my destruction, and also exclude me putting the gospel on display for the lost to receive. But if I know God's agenda, and I know that God is not willing that any should perish, I'm going to take the blessing of the Lord and maximize that to put the gospel out to as many people as possible. Galatians 2:20 says, I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless, I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. The life that I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God. I don't live by my faith. I live by a faith that's more perfect than mine. I live by a faith that's greater than mine. And when I live my life in the flesh by Christ's faith, then Christ's agenda is on my mind when I get riches. So when the blessing of God is upon me, I don't think to do what I want to do with the riches that come via his blessing. I think to do what Christ would do with the riches. So that's Galatians 2:20. I'm crucified with Christ. And when I'm crucified, I don't think about what I would do. I allow Christ to live in me, so Christ is in control of my vessel, of my body. Romans 12:1 through 2. Romans 12:1 and 2. Romans 12:1 and 2. It's building on the same thing. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. So now Galatians says I'm crucified with Christ, and basically God, his purpose is operating through me, or it's number one, it's priority. Romans 12:1 reminds me to do the same thing, to present my body a living sacrifice. So the general theme that's developing is that my body really is not my own, and it's not at my discretion what I do with my body. But Christ who liveth in me has perfect control of the body that was made for him. In 1 Corinthians chapter 6, it said that the body was not made for fornication, but it was made for the Lord. And it goes on to say that the Lord was made for the body. So when God has created a body for his own use, and I'm made for him, I'm in the perfect will of God when I submit myself to Jesus Christ to use my body however he wants to. And see, that's inclusive of his blessing. So when his blessing comes, I still consult God to know what to do with the riches that's been placed in the body that he made for himself. Let's go to Romans, the 8th chapter. Romans chapter 8. Romans chapter 8, starting with verse 28. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose, not my purpose, according to his purpose. For whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. Now this says, for whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate. So it's his purpose, and it's him predestinating us. And this is his body. I'm not my own. I'm bought with a price. So everything that's being done in my body and through my body is according to his purpose and not my own. Moreover, whom he did predestinate, them he also called. Now he called, so now you got God who has his purpose, he predestinated, and he called. And whom he called, them he also justified. And we know that we've been justified by his blood, and he's been raised for our justification. So everything that's going on is